of your life is most affected by the federal government? Where do you think?
I'd say my education.
School.
Our education.
School. My education.
School. School. My education. Yes.
It is true for most kids that the biggest role the federal government plays in their childhood is in their education. But, as most are well aware, today's U.S. education is in a state of crisis and controversy.
It's not that we may be in a crisis. We are in a significant crisis in education in this country today. If you look at any of the statistics, I mean, we are spending more than twice as much money on education today than we were 40 years ago, and the results have declined.
My name is Madeline Baum, and my education, particularly math, helped me better understand the role of the federal government in my life and community. When the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 into space in 1957, the United States government made it a national priority to beat the Soviet Union to the moon. This vision of President Kennedy's, along with funds for math and science education, created some of the best scientists and mathematicians the U.S. has seen.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
12 years later, through America's competitiveness and persistence, Kennedy's dream became a reality. But now, the U.S. is ranked 31st place in math on the 2009 PISA test, and it's not Russia, but China who leads the world in math scores. Shanghai, China was ranked first across the board, so it's obvious who our new competition is. Although this time, it's not about getting to the moon first, it's about creating new jobs and leading-edge technology. Do you think the U.S. needs another Sputnik moment to be able to compete with the rest of the world?
I think we do, and in fact, it's not that we're entirely non-competitive, but clearly other countries are doing very well in exporting automobiles to the United States.
There are some articles out today that liken this to sort of a Sputnik moment for the United States when we realized that, you know, the Soviet Union was passing us by and we feared it and we made changes. What, is this our Sputnik moment when it comes to educating our kids?
I actually do not think so. There's nothing in these results that I think are the surprising in the least.
So what exactly is China doing that we're not? Americans tend to stereotype Chinese education as real drill and kill, when it really isn't like that at all. The Chinese are trying to move away from standards, standardized testing, and grants much like our No Child Left Behind grant. They focus more on creativity and problem-based learning. There's also something to be said about the cultural differences. Studying in China is a source of national pride, and education is by far much more valued than it is in the United States. China's does not require an education after 9th grade, and for the poor and more rural children, they don't continue with their education. In No Child Left Behind, Bush intended for the states to be more accountable for the education going on. Obama really hasn't touched on No Child Left Behind for the first 2 years of his presidency, but at the end of January, he's going to address education in his State of the Union speech. Last year, the Congress approved federal stimulus money to 8 states in education. New Jersey received $268 million. The Department of Education creating an initiative called Race to the Top, where states would compete with one another for education money. There's also another controversial topic of national standards, where kids in like Alabama would be learning the same things as kids in New Jersey, for example. Math education is vital. The top 5 jobs are all math-centered. Miss Daly, my Algebra 1 teacher, is an energetic new teacher who's taught math for 4 years and Algebra 1 to 7th graders for 2 years. What is your opinion on national standards and standards in general?
I think they're necessary to keep states and counties within the state aligned on what they're teaching. You want to make sure that within each grade level that the students are receiving something similar. Especially from one country to another, you know, from New Jersey over to California, you don't want there to be a lot of differences in what the students are learning. However, with differences, and there's different lifestyles between New Jersey and California, so I'm not sure it needs to be exactly the same. I think that might be unrealistic, but there should be some
Do you feel the students could be capable of more advanced math if it was pushed at earlier ages?
I would rather say challenge than use the word push. You never want to push a student to do something they're not ready for. But if you start at an early age, and the first day they step into school, to challenge them, then they'll be used to it, and they'll always be ready for that challenge.
What has changed in the way math teachers are prepared to teach math?
The main thing that's changed has been the advent of the NCTM, that's the National Council of Teachers of Math, the NCTM standards. What that was an effort to actually get everybody kind of agreeing on what should be taught, and it called for the issue of more of a focus on problem solving and application, and it being intellectually challenging and appropriate, not necessarily just abstract, but having meaning, helping students make meaning for themselves. So for example, you're taking the Algebra 1 class. So if I asked you, so what makes algebra algebra? How would you answer that?
What makes algebra algebra is the abstract thinking with the ability to comprehend that variables can stand for numbers.
That's exactly the point of algebra. And so see how that level of thinking is at a totally different level than can you solve this equation?
What made you decide to offer Algebra 1 to 7th graders?
Process. First of all, we wanted to align our courses to our new school community. Secondly, the state assessment data, as we started to look at it, started to tell us that our students were now prepared for Algebra 1 in 7th grade. And I think just overall, we just wanted to continue to reflect our community and push to the next level of achievement.
Do you find that your 7th grade students perform as well as high school Algebra 1 students?
Yes. Our 7th grade population performed very well relative to our 9th and 10th grade population. Reason being, if you look at the individual students who are taking the Algebra 1 course, they're our top students who are coming out of 6th grade with advanced proficient levels.
But it's up to the universities to instruct the teachers how to teach well. Brown University has been awarded $2.5 million from the National Science Foundation to work with 4 local districts in math and science education.
The farther you go in school, the farther you're going to go in life. And at a time when other countries are competing with us like never before, when students around the world, in Beijing, China, or Bangalore, India, are working harder than ever and doing better than ever, your success in school is not just going to determine your success, it's going to determine America's success in the 21st century.
Will Obama inspire as Kennedy inspired? Who knows? But we can all agree that the status quo is no longer an option.